My parents were both American born. My father was born in Springfield, my mother in Boston, Cambridge. My mother grew up in Cambridge. So many of the early founding families of St. Demetrius came from the cathedral. We came from Cambridge. My mother grew up there. She was married in the Cambridge church. I was baptized there. Cambridge was different from the cathedral in that there was a large Greek presence in Cambridge. They all went to high school together, to church together, sang in the choir together. They were a very, very tight-knit family.
St. Constantine and Helen.
St. Constantine and Helen, I'm sorry.
Yes. No, it's fine, yes.
So my parents, who were American born, wanted me to have a Greek Orthodox identity. So they really went above and beyond. They went back and forth for Sunday school, for junior choir practice, for junior Goya, for cheerleader. I was a cheerleader for the church basketball team.
Oh my goodness.
It was exhausting.
Were the yells in Greek?
No. No, but there was a strong Greek presence in the church,
yes,
which was hard for me because I didn't really have that Greek background. Second generation, you stop speaking Greek at home. In any case, and I couldn't go to Greek school because it was right after American school, and it was not possible.
What were your parents doing professionally?
My uncle Nick, who was
yes,
also a founder of the church, had a restaurant, and my mother ran the front half, he ran the back half, and my father was working for another company.
Okay.
My father's parents were married before they came to this country, and they were born in, well, it's now called Elaine, but back when it was called, I'm blanking. It had a Turkish name, which they weren't happy with.
Where was it about?
Peloponnesos.
Peloponnesos, okay.
My mother's parents met here. So her mother was from Lefkada, and her father was from Messenia, I think.
Yes, okay, Kalamata.
He had already died, and I don't know much about him.
So what brought them here? Your grandparents?
I think it was just looking for a new life. There were a small group of people who decided there should be a new church, which was pretty daring because there wasn't a Greek population in Newton, Wellesley, Weston. So that was different from the other church communities. There were Greeks, but not a big presence. They got the telephone books. So they got hold of the Newton telephone book, and they went through the Newton telephone book looking for Greek names.
Oh,
so Panagopoulos, you think maybe that's a Greek name.
Absolutely.
So my parents came home and they said they want to build a church here in Newton. And so they were in.
But then we had to name it.
Yes,
can we talk about the naming?
I wasn't there that night.
Oh my.
I stayed home and did homework.
Oh.
It was a Sunday night. But that was a free-for-all. My parents were there. Everybody talks about it. It was the Wild West. You had to pay for your vote.
Absolutely.
And there was a battle going on between someone wanted Hagia Sophia.
Yes.
And there were quite a few Dimitri.
Yes, that's exactly what that said. Yes.
So it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it was kind of even Steven. And they were making money. The longer it went on, the more money they were making.
Yeah.
And then finally somebody, and I've forgotten his name, threw down an extra $1,000 and said, this is it. We're going to put an end to it. It's going to be St. Demetrius. So we begin. And in the beginning, we never knew who the priest was going to be. We didn't have a priest. It was a different priest every week. Nobody knew anybody. So we invented coffee hour. We were the first church to ever have coffee hour because we didn't know each other. So one of my strongest memories of the early years of the church. I remember that they had an icon screen, obviously with the icons, but it was a plywood icon screen, and every inch was covered with flowers. And what I remember was the scent of the gardenias. It was magnificent. This church never did things in a small way. They were always over the top with whatever they could do for their church. Helen Makris tells the story. She was about to give birth to her second or third child, right at that time. And her husband, George, went down to Connecticut. There was a church in Connecticut that was buying a new icon screen, and they were gifting their old icon screen to us. And so it must have been Friday night. George drove all the way down to Connecticut with a few of the other men, drove all the way back, and there were people at the church waiting. And I think in the middle of the night or early morning hours, they put that icon screen up.
Unbelievable.
So finally, just last Sunday when I was talking to her, it clicked. What I was remembering was Good Friday. Flowers, epitafio.
Yes.
The icon screen came in for the first Easter.
Resurrection.
In those 24 hours, they pulled it in and put it up. Can you imagine the commitment? They wanted it there. And they literally stayed up all night, I'm sure. The Azure Ball, very early on, became a tradition.
Why Azure? Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Okay.
It was held at the country club just down the street from the church, Woodland Country Club.
Woodland Country Club, yes.
We were there recently for the golf tournament, and I said to Father Cremidis, this is where they used to have the Azure Ball. And he said, no, it's too small. And I said, we were small.
Yes, exactly,
we were small. They all fit into that tiny facility. There was a raffle. This is the fun part. There was a raffle. They were raffling off a Cadillac, which in the early 1960s was the car.
Absolutely.
This was a huge pink Cadillac with enormous tail fins. And the tickets were $100 a piece,
At that time.
which in 1960 was a big amount of money.
Yes.
My Uncle Peter bought a ticket, Peter Georgantis.
Yes.
And I was just talking to my cousin Louie, and he said they were at home on Saturday night. They get a telephone call, and they said, we're at the Azure Ball. You just won the Cadillac.
Uncle George?
Uncle Peter.
Uncle Peter won the Cadillac?
George
Georgantis. He won the Cadillac.
He won the Cadillac, and for years, every family event, there was that pink Cadillac. But it was wonderful. Again, larger than life, dramatic. That's the style of this church. The Goya, you wanted to know about the Goya. I have snatches of memories, so that I don't remember always the exact place, but I have the memory. I remember many outings. We went, it was a small group. I don't know how many of us there were.
She said about 20. That small, yes.
I was just going to say 20. I consider that small, but there were about 20 of us to start with. We would meet in the church hall for Goya meetings.
Friday nights.
I remember we went on a skiing trip.
Yes.
And that was great fun. I learned to snowplow. I was not a skier. We went to the beach, and I have pictures of that beach party.
Oh, excellent.
We had, the boys made a pyramid. So there would be 3 on the bottom, 2 boys on top, and then I have a picture of Cindy on the very top and of myself on the very top of those pyramids at the beach. So I remember the beach outings.
Bowling?
I don't remember. Yes.
Yes, bowling.
Yes. I had forgotten about that. You're right.
Yes.
There was bowling. The trio Bel Canto
Yes.
had just put out a record of Greek ballads, and one of them was titled Sing Along with the Trio Bel Canto.
Okay.
They had, in the record jackets, they had all the lyrics printed out in Greek and then in anglicized Greek.
Right.
And the whole church community sat there and sang along with the
Are we
Trio Bel
talking
Canto.
Newton Lower Falls now?
Newton Lower Falls.
No kidding. That's enough.
I have focused on Newton Lower Falls.
Unbelievable.
And in fact, there isn't that much. That we have a wonderful Greek school today,
Yes.
but there aren't that many community Greek-speaking events like the ballads. I think we have a large non-Greek presence in this church.
Yes.
And so it no longer works. But in those days, we identified as Greek, and it was just wonderful.
Now, I want you to speak briefly to the fact that you, having been brought, because of the efforts of your parents, a Greek girl in the middle of Cambridge and Newton, and you end up marrying not any person with a foreign name, but you found a Greek person.
Yes.
Well, how did you find this Greek person?
Well, first of all, when I was growing up, a mixed marriage was when the grandparents of the bride and the grandparents of the groom came from different villages in Greece.
Oh, yes, well,
Anything outside of that was not allowed.
I got it. I'm with you.
Once I graduated from college, I went to Greece to meet my grandmother's family in Lefkada. They were in Athens,
Yes,
and they still kept their home in Lefkada.
go ahead.
My mother's first cousin, one of her first cousins was Apostoli Kaklamanis, who was a lawyer in Greece,
There's a
and
big name in Greece, yes,
eventually became president of parliament.
yes.
I would go visit him in his law offices. Now, they saw a young and, at that time, very attractive young Greek girl. They kept trying to marry me off. It wasn't working. I was not going to stay in Greece. Said, they're smart. Apostoli said, I have some friends, some lawyers, because all the lawyers were at Santa Rosa Street. They were all in the same office
You're correct
building.
about that, yes.
I have some colleagues who have their nephew visiting from America.
Uh-oh, yes,
Let's all have coffee together.
absolutely.
So here I am in the law offices with, it was a husband and wife. She was a judge, he was a lawyer, friends of Apostoli, and my cousin, I called him Cousin Apostoli, and Michael Ward, who was their relative. And Michael said, I'm going to Harvard. I'm beginning a PhD program in applied physics. Turned out, as luck would have it, we lived on the same city block in Cambridge. He lived on Oxford Street, I lived on Garfield Street, practically next door. Well, that was the beginning and the end of that.
Romance. Yes.
Finally,
yes.
they assigned Father Bouboulis.
Right.
He was only a few years older than we were. He was a new graduate, newly ordained. And we bonded. We had never had a priest more or less our age.
Exactly.
American born. Kind of somebody we could really relate to. He taught Greek school on Saturday morning. I don't know if they told you that. He was just part of our lives. And then, catastrophe. They decided to transfer him. trauma, really trauma. And the adults put together a little delegation and went to New York and said, please don't do this. We built this church for our children.
Yes.
They finally are settling down. They're bonding. They're
Oh boy.
forming a community. They've identified with this priest. You don't tell church hierarchy what to do.
Okay.
Father Purudas was transferred. And I remember being so worried about him. How was he going to get along without us? I mean, it was so
Good
close.
guess.
He was out there all by himself, and the rest of us were in Newton. I didn't see him again for 40 years.
Wow.
We were having the 40th anniversary of the church, big party.
Yes.
And I knew that Father Purudas was going to be there. And my husband and I almost never went to the big banquets and the big festivities. But I said to him, I have to go to this one.
Of course. Yes.
Because I want to see Father Purudas. And I told him many, many stories of the early years at St. Demetrius and our time with Father Purudas. We get to the dance. I spot Father Purudas somewhere or other, and I go up and I introduce myself. I said, I'm one of the original Goyans. And he very sheepishly reached into his pocket and pulled out a picture. And the picture was taken at his farewell dinner. We had given him a Paul Revere silver bowl, the Goyans. I don't know why. I can't imagine what use he had for it, but that was our gift to him. And I remember him saying, well, this matches their sterling characters.
Oh,
He was
What a
wonderful. He was wonderful. He pulled out this picture, and there were maybe 8 of us in the picture, 6, 8, not many. And he said, which one are you? So now it was my turn to sort of sheepishly reach into my pocketbook and get my reading glasses because I couldn't see a thing. And I said, that one, Father, in the white dress. And I didn't start coming back to church in a very regular way until my husband died. And it was very, very hard. And whenever my life has become difficult, I go back to my father's house. This is my father's house. And so